Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NTI Pod Talk. My name is Diane Kaler, and I'm the Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. This Pod Talk is our opportunity to have fun conversations with interesting people who have interesting things to say about nutrition, food, and health. I talk to NTI instructors, students and grads, to health industry professionals, to farmers, and anyone else who has an interest in nutritional wellness. While many of our listeners come from within the NTI community as students and grads, we also have prospective students who tune in. And to those listeners in particular, I hope you find that the people we talk to inspire you to finally make the jump to pursue your passion and come to school here at NTI. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the NTI Pod Talk. My name is Diane Kaler, and I'm the Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. I am so happy today to welcome a graduate of our program, another graduate of our program, Maya Strausberg. And Maya has taken an interesting path since she graduated from NTI, and we're going to talk about that. So first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Diane. It's a real pleasure. I'm excited.
Great, good. All right. So I mentioned you're a graduate of NTI, so obviously you have an interest in nutrition. How did that interest in nutrition start, and what prompted you to want to go to school?
So I'm originally from San Francisco, and I moved to Denver almost 14 years ago now. And when I did, I was looking for new work, and I found a couple things here and there. And then I had my daughter in 2011 and had taken some time off, and it was time for me to get back to work. I was definitely ready, and I wanted to go in a whole new direction. My background was in journalism predominantly, and as well as publishing. And it was pretty recently that the Rocky Mountain News had gone under. So it was a difficult time to be in journalism. And I just felt like very much pulled in a completely new direction, but I wasn't exactly sure what. And I was driving down the street with my mom in the car at one point, and we drove by the old NTI location in Denver off of Colfax. And my mom saw the signage and said, "Nutrition, that would be so perfect for you." And I said, what are you talking about? And she was pointing out that, I mean, my mom was a nurse and a health educator my whole life. And growing up in San Francisco with amazing restaurants all over the place, I grew up a total foodie. And it wasn't something that ever dawned on me to combine those two things, being around health and food. But my mom sort of planted the seed in my mind. And when she did, I started looking into it, and it just sort of felt like a natural combination in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, then we have your mother to thank. So thanks, Mom.
She's been very supportive.
Yeah, that's great. Good. So that's how you found NTI, driving by. That's a common thing that people say, is they drove by and saw our sign. So, you know, thanks to our signage at the other location, did great for bringing students in. How did you, were you thinking that you would want to have a practice in nutrition, like become a nutrition therapist when you came to school, or was it just simply for your own knowledge at that point?
You know, I knew it was something that I wanted to do career-wise, but I wasn't sure what shape and form that would take at the time that I started. I mean, I started to have fantasies of what that would look like, but it wasn't really until I was finishing up with my MNT certification that I kind of knew that I was going to be drawn into having my own private practice. And specifically because it was around the time after my daughter was born that I decided to do this, I was drawn toward fertility and pregnancy, postpartum and early childhood nutrition, just because of my own experience with my daughter. I had worked when she was still nursing. I had worked with a naturopathic doctor who kind of opened my eyes to so many alternatives to sort of the what we are taught to think is like the only path in terms of the health of our families. And the program really opened my eyes to all these other options and paths and things that I could have done differently, and ways in which I was really passionate about introducing solids to babies, like all kinds of things that I had never thought about until having my own experience. And I kind of geeked out on the idea of helping out other families. And so that was the way that I kind of got drawn in that direction. And I never, when I started going to school at NTI, I never thought that I would start my own business necessarily, but it was hard for me to imagine doing this working in somebody else's practice or in somebody else's office space even.
So you mentioned that when you came to school, you kind of, your eyes were opened, you kind of were led to other ideas, other concepts about health and wellness and nutrition. What, if you could like come up with an overarching concept or basis of knowledge that really resonated with you, and that you even maybe continue to utilize now, can you come up with something that was really impactful for you?
Yeah, I think two big takeaways for me was I think, like a lot of people, and I continue to see this with a lot of my clients when I was working with clients, that that nutrition meant that there were foods that you shouldn't eat, right? That it was so much about don't eat this and don't eat that, and that there was so much more to it was about the foods that are actually healing and nurturing, that you can increase or include as part of your diet, and that it wasn't about cutting back on A, B, and C. It was about adding X, Y, and Z. So for me, that was really powerful because I think, and I have definitely worked with a lot of clients who have had eating disorders or really troubled relationships with food, and to sort of see their eyes pop and like, oh, it's not about restriction. It's about like variety. It's about understanding that there are some foods that maybe don't work for some people, but the idea that there are more healing foods than there are dangerous foods or damaging foods in a lot of ways. And then the other piece of it too is that that food can still be really fun, that it doesn't have to be a chore, that like it's not eating food for your health or eating food because you enjoy it. There's for the most part, there's a huge overlap. And I'm somebody who I really have a lot of fun with my food. And I think it's fun to experiment and to enjoy your food, and to help the clients over the years sort of find joy in their food again was really powerful for me.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. And I totally agree with you. People think that eating healthy means you restrict yourself and you're kind of eating, like the I don't know, the classic thing people say is like your diet ends up being something like you're eating cardboard all the time. I don't know where that comes. I don't know who eats cardboard that they think that's what eating healthy is. But and I love how you really take it to a whole different level, and it's not so much about what you cut out, but it's about what you add in to increase the variety. Yeah.
And even how we eat, right? It's not just about what we put in our bodies. I mean, because I have worked with so many families, a lot of it was including kids in food shopping, including kids in cooking, playing music while you cook and having fun with it, talking about what you're eating and what you're cooking. And I remember I remember the old relationship with food retreat, where we we learned about taking the time to like appreciate the food in front of us and smell it and see the colors and think of the people who grew or raised that food. And that was I feel like is a really powerful tool that a lot of people don't.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that you kind of had this idea that you wanted to work with fertility and pregnancy and infant nutrition. Is that what you indeed ended up doing after you graduated? What did your business look like after you graduated?
Yeah. So when I first graduated, I was working in a collaborative health space. So it was individual businesses with some overlap and collaborating when possible. And it was an amazing, amazing way to start my career. But it wasn't sustainable for me because it felt like all of my money that I was making was going back into paying rent for the space.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people have had that similar experience.
Mhm.
So I did that for a while, and then, but working with mostly, like I'd say 90%, it was working with women and a lot of families as well. But once I decided to move out of that space, what I started doing instead was working with predominantly families in their homes. So I said, you know, if I don't have my own space, I have the flexibility to meet them where they are, literally and figuratively, right?
Yeah.
So when it didn't feel safe, like there were times when somebody would just find me on the internet and I didn't know who they were, and we'd have our initial meetings in sometimes a library community space or sometimes a coffee shop. But a lot of my meetings with clients were in their homes, and the power of that was being able to see where they cook and where they eat. And if they're telling me about a vitamin that they're taking and they don't remember the name of it, they literally turn and grab it and like, let's see what's in here. And that was really an amazing, amazing experience. And I truly loved going into people's homes and seeing that. And also for people with young kids, it was a huge weight off their shoulders of like, I want to include my kids, but I also don't want them to be stuck in somebody else's office space as well.
Yeah, that's great. That is, you know, it is definitely a very precarious thing when you're doing your work, going to where they are, because as you say, you want to make sure that you're going into a safe situation. But it's also really helpful, as you mentioned, to actually see what their kitchen looks like, be able to help them do a pantry assessment right there. And, you know, because you could ask them what kind of foods they buy, but to actually see and see that potentially the difference between what they would say and what's actually there. That's you know, that happens a lot. But anyways, I do think it's really valuable to do that. So so you did that for a while, and then you progressed into potentially, you know, I'm sure there was some steps in this progression, but to where you are now, which is that you offer writing and editing services to health and wellness professionals. So can you talk a little bit about this? And what I love about this is that you're combining your nutrition education with your background in journalism. So can you talk about what that looks like and how you came to the decision to want to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, as I'm sure many alumni can tell you, they have had the experience of times where it felt like they were spending more time getting business than actually working on their business, which is just really difficult when all you want to do is help people, right? And it's just not, it's spending so much time finding people or getting people to find you. And so I was in a particularly slow period of my practice, and somebody, it was sort of a friend of a friend, had said that they needed some help with blog writing. And I thought, I can do that. I mean, I have a background in that kind of work anyway. And I started doing that for her, and then started doing it. And she was an NTI graduate as well, and started doing that for more and more people. And then the pandemic hit, and it seemed like a natural transition to just sort of be able to do that, have that be the focus of my business and be able to work from home and work with my own schedule. And that was sort of how the transition started. And I think once I started doing it as well, I realized how much I missed working that part of my brain, that there was a piece, that journalism and publishing piece of me that kind of missed being able to do that. And the idea of combining, like you said, those skills and being able to geek out on both sides of my brain, being able to do the nutrition research and things for clients, but then also do the writing and editing piece, which is just something that is such a big part of has been a big part of my life since I was a kid, that it's enjoyable for me, and that I know I'm good at it. That's the other piece of it too. So to know that there are people who are helping nutritionists and other wellness practitioners do writing and editing because they have the writing piece. And then to know that there are people who are really knowledgeable in the nutrition piece, but don't necessarily have the skills in that. You can hire somebody who has a specialty in one or the other, but it's really hard to find people who have both of those sides of the coin. So as I started doing that, I found more and more people were needing that. And so I, about a year and a half ago, decided to stop taking nutrition therapy clients completely. And there's also a little piece of me that really likes to get paid for all the work that I do and not just the face-to-face time. Anybody who's had nutrition therapy clients can tell you that the amount of work that we put into our clients that they don't see is it's a lot. And the idea of being able to for people to see the value of all of the work I'm doing, not just what they're seeing face to face, was really beneficial for me.
And so your business is called Family Tree Nutrition. And like, do you do, I don't, I don't want to out you or anything like that, but do you do ghostwriting for people, or do you have the byline? How does that work?
Yeah, predominantly it's what most people consider ghostwriting. So I do website content, I do email newsletters, I do social media, I do blogs. Where I draw the line is that I won't do, I edit people's ebooks, but I won't write somebody's like ebook or book, because I feel like in this field there are, I mean, it should be somebody else's work that goes into it. I'm happy to help them with it. But that's sort of, for me personally, where I draw the line. So most of my work, I do not take the credit for. Like when you see it out there, you don't know that it's me. And you'd be surprised how many people in all kinds of industries do that kind of thing. And even really well-known websites and things, they usually have a staff of people doing writing. So, which is understandable when you think of the time that goes into it. And again, that it's just not everybody's forte, that people have the ideas, but to put it down on paper is just not going to be everybody's niche, everybody's strength. So when I can help people, and one of the things that I'm really, really passionate about is making sure that it doesn't sound like me writing on their websites or emails or whatever it is. I do a lot of research into each and every one of my clients, reading some of their past stuff so that I can write in their voice. And that's really important for me, for my clients.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a little like being an actor, where you have to put yourself in a completely different frame of mind and speak from a different voice than what may be your own. So interesting. Well, so what I love about this is that, we tell students and people who are getting ready to graduate and prospective students, we tell them that coming to school here and getting your certification doesn't put you in a black box of, you can only practice within these boundaries and there's nothing else you can do with this. And, we tell them that kind of the field is wide open. You can utilize your knowledge and your skills in whatever way fits best in your life and whatever impact you want to make on the world. It's up to your own initiative and your own creativity. And you certainly have utilized that openness by going back to your previous training and including now this new passion for nutrition. And And I think that's a beautiful melding of your two skill sets. And, I'm sure you have many more skill sets, but it's a beautiful way to combine those two skill sets.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was lucky enough to take pretty much all my NTI classes in person, and it was really amazing meeting other people, other students, and finding out where their backgrounds were, whether they were just getting started on a career path or whether they were changing careers. But so many people were just from such a wide range of backgrounds, right? Like there were people who were nurses and doctors. There were people who were fitness instructors. There were people who came from like the financial world. There were people who were doing, IT work or whatever it was. And a lot, I mean, the more I talked to people, the more I realized that people sort of felt like they had to turn their back on whatever they did before in order to go in this new direction. And I think that it's a missed opportunity if you don't use the skills that you do already have from past work. And it doesn't have to mean going in a whole direction. It can mean that you're just really good at running a business, right? I mean, we know that there are some people who go into nutrition who aren't very good at business. And there are people who are really amazing at it. And if they can help other people with their business, their specific nutrition businesses, or if they do website design in the past, I mean, they can focus on that, or even as side work for other nutritionists. There's so many ways to go about using those strengths for your benefit of your business, but also for other nutritionists and health practitioners in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that gives people kind of a sense that, their previous education, their previous life, the amount of financial resources they put into getting their previous education, they don't have to turn their back on it and shove it all aside. They can incorporate that knowledge into what they're doing, and then expand into this whole other area that they never even knew existed, or because they're creating the path for themselves.
Absolutely.
And I think that's an amazing thing about that. Yeah. So, we just kind of talked about, a little bit of maybe advice for students. Do you have anything else that we can talk about that from your experience or what you've seen of those people who maybe not know exactly what they want to do with their nutrition education? How do they kind of think about the way to explore other opportunities for using their nutrition education and being able to financially, find whatever success they determine is success?
Yeah, I think what's really been amazing for me has been to sort of talk to other NTI graduates and sort of see what they're doing and find. And the other thing is, you don't have to also create something brand new, right? If you talk to somebody who is doing something in a successful way and they're going, oh man, this has been really great for me and great for other people, and like how, but there's almost too much, right? Like there's too much of the work. We'll say, great, let's talk about how maybe I can shadow you and sort of see what you do and how that's been successful. And I mean, it doesn't have to be, I think finding ways to collaborate with people, learn from other people, and again, in ways that utilize the skills that you already have, and finding ways to sort of, I mean, you just have to see, like, do you need to start a new thing? Do you need to do something that somebody else is already doing that there's more need for? Because one of the things that I found is certainly that there is the need for what I'm doing, right? I have clients that are walking distance from me, and I have clients that are in Australia. And that's the other thing, is that we have the technology now that we can have clients around the world. I mean, depending on what you do with it, but we have ways that we can find people and stay connected with people all over. And, things like Zoom, and even, I mean, there's just so much out there that allows us to find people in ways that there weren't even 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So I think that finding those opportunities, a lot of it is talking to people who are already out there doing it and find out what's working and what's not working, and what's needed and what's not needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love all that. Because I think that, one of the scariest thing, and I'm sure this is the case with any kind of degree that any kind of education that you pursue, whether it's a 4-year college degree or a, technical school, trade school, whatever. You're in school, you're plugging away at the academics, and then at some point in time, you realize, oh, I'm going to be done with this, in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And then what? And then there's this, it kind of brings about, some anxiety and some fear. And so I think it's really helpful for people to recognize that there are so many different opportunities. And I think what your suggestion to connect with other people and collaborate with other people is ideal, specifically for this situation, because there is no forged path that everyone does, and so being able to connect with others who have made an impact in whatever way they can is helpful to help inform, your own thought processes of how you want to make that impact. So, yeah, absolutely. Well, is there anything that, you feel like we should bring to the discussion that I didn't ask you? Any thoughts, any ideas that you'd like to talk about?
I think, and this sort of, I think a lot of what we talked about sort of hints at this, but I think that, I don't want to pigeonhole here, but I think especially women, that we tend to think that we have to be the ones to do everything, and that outsourcing what we are not skilled at, have the time for, is really, really crucial. And like we've said, there are so many people out there doing a lot of these things that if it's not a good use of your time, there's somebody else that is dying to do it. And a lot of them, honestly, are NTI students, NTI grads. There are people out there doing all kinds of things that, I have a friend who got her logo because an NTI graduate that I knew was also an artist, and she got her logo from this, and it had nothing to do with nutrition. In general, but it was, my friend was like, I know this person is sort of holistic minded and will sort of approach this from, I want to say a healthy standpoint, but I know we'll collaborate well, right? And then so finding those people that can do those things for you that are just not in your skill set, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to do a YouTube video on website design or, find the people in your sphere, whether that's an NTI sphere or just your community sphere, or the World Wide Web. There's people all over the place doing everything. Don't be afraid to reach out and have those people do the things that you can't or aren't able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. All right. Well, so how can people find out about you? What are all of your contacts and handles and whatever they're called on all the social media stuff?
Yeah. So unfortunately, my social media is, I'm on Instagram, but my own personal social media tends to lag a little bit because I'm usually working on other people's stuff. But my website is just familytreenutrition.com. And there's all sorts of info on there about what kinds of services I offer. And as I said, I've got clients all over the world. So if you're not in the Denver area, there's that's totally fine. And like many NTI graduates, I do a free phone consult to make sure we're a good fit, because I'm a big fan of that. And whatever your writing or editing needs are. And I just love work. I work with acupuncturists and doctors and estheticians and massage therapists, but nutritionists are definitely my favorite to work with, especially NTI grads, because I know that their base knowledge is wide.
Yes.
And I know that for the most part, I mean, I'd say 99% of the time when I interact with an NTI grad, we are on the same page about so many things. And it's just a really fun experience for me. So
Great. Good. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for, giving that advice to current students, those who are getting ready to graduate, even graduates, and even prospective students who are looking at this and wondering, I'm interested in this, but I don't know exactly what I would do with it or how I would use it. I think that's really helpful for prospective students as well. So, thank you so much for your time, and we will let you go and get on with the rest of your day. So thanks.
Thanks so much, Diane.
Hi there, and thanks for listening today. If what you heard today inspires you to want to pursue an education in holistic nutrition here at Nutrition Therapy Institute, please check us out on our website, ntischool.com, and reach out to us at admissions@ntischool.com. Our in-depth comprehensive education is sure to provide you with the knowledge and skills you need to create the work of your dreams. Do something that feeds your passion, aligns with your values, and fuels your drive for a vital and meaningful life. It will be rewarding for yourself, your family, and anyone else with whom you interact. And with that, see you on the next episode.